those of you that know Rod know that he's fascinating and full of information from sunup to sundown and beyond sundown sometimes. And he's here with us tonight, and we're excited to have him share with us some of our upcoming tours we've got for this 2021 touring season. So I'll turn it over to Rod.
All right. Hopefully everybody can hear okay.
Yes,
Getting over that. I'm going to be done with this. So there you go. But I just wanted to have a shout out here to Chris and Mark and Jill. They have been just such dear friends and have made these tours really possible. So it's been really nice to be able to have them, kind of back online. Last year, we were very disappointed because of the fact that we had I think 4 tours and they were all pretty much sold out, and it's looking like it was going to be a great year. And then all of a sudden, wham! And we couldn't go anywhere and do anything, and it was just the whole COVID crisis basically. So a lot of you have been waiting patiently for this year, and we just found out, as you probably now know, that this morning the church officially announced that they are not going to have the Hill Cumorah pageant this coming summer, which is we were hoping or anticipating. We're trying to find out whether that was going to happen or not, but apparently the state of New York is still wishy-washy as to whether they're going to open up or not or what. And so there's really no way that the church can go forward with something like that when it's just too risky to try to put that all together. So that's my understanding as far as what's going on. But nonetheless, I'm really excited about it because we're going to see and kind of and Mark and Jill, you can jump in here if you want to for just a second, but we are going to offer to or see what everybody's particular thoughts are as to whether or not they would still want to go on the tours this summer if the Hill Cumorah pageant is not going to be going on, which it won't be, and also the other pageants in Nauvoo will not be happening this year as well. But that doesn't mean that Nauvoo's not open. It doesn't mean that we can't go see a lot of the other places. A lot of the church history sites look like may or may not be open in the summertime. But many of these sites are places that we can go to and visit without having to actually be go into the visitor centers, although it's obviously better if we can. So we're going to kind of give a lot of people the option as to whether or not you feel like you would like to go, irregardless of whether or not we can go into the church history sites and or the some of the museums and places. They are open on a limited basis, and so we can work with them. They're usually really good with working with us as tours because we've been doing these tours for a number of years now, and they know who we are, and they know we do a good job on that. So I guess we're going to see how this all goes. But the tours this year are mostly full, pretty much just a couple of seats left on a couple of them. But this may change that, depending on if people really want to, really going to be disappointed about not being able to see the Hill Cumorah pageant. But at this point in time, it's a moot point because there will be no more Hill Cumorah pageants, which is major bummer, but that's the way it is. All right, so without further ado, I want to play this a little bit of an introduction video about Legacy Tours. Mark and Jill and Chris have been doing such a great job, and I just am just thrilled to be able to host some of their tours. They do a lot of other tours as well, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. But I want to kind of focus a little bit tonight on the Discovery Tour, which is a brand new tour. We were going to do it last year, and of course that got canceled. But it's a brand new one. We have kind of done it in a very limited situation a couple of years ago for a group of VIPs from the church history department and from the we had about 45 people. We had a number of the scholars from the Mesoamerica side of the fence, and we're there. And then we had people from the church film department and church, the CES and seminaries and institutes and so forth. We had people from the priesthood department and other departments of the church, about 38 total. And we did this tour, and it was amazing. And we thought, you know what? There's a lot of people who would love to go on a 2-week tour, but maybe don't have the time, or maybe they can't afford to take off a full 2 weeks to do the longer chronology tour. But they still want to be able to see kind of the heart of it. And so that's what this discovery tour is about. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in just a minute. Let me just go ahead and play this video for you. This is just a little introduction to this, and I'll do a little bit of voiceover as we watch the video here. Get to this here real quick. Okay. Play that. Okay, just 1 second here. Hold on, I went too fast here. Okay, I need to go to share screen and viewer. Let's see, report. Okay, just 1 second here. This one. And I've got to get to the other one more screen here. Just 1 second here. Okay, here we go. This is the promo that we did for the chronology tour a couple of years ago. Of course, this is Nauvoo Temple. It's one of our favorite places that we always go. Showing the riverside out in the background there. This is in Georgia. It's Okmulgee Mountains. And this is in Florida. Letchworth Love Mounds there. We start off in Tallahassee, go up to Atlanta, and all the way up to North Carolina and to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and on up the other direction. It's an amazing, amazing tour. We have some pretty good ideas what things would have looked like back in the time. And so I wanted to share with you some of those things. The land of first inheritance, the land of Nephi, then up to the land of Zarahemla, then to Land Bountiful. This is now up and we finished the tour at the top of the hill Cumorah. Atlanta, Georgia. They're quiet and nice. The kind of get an idea of the sheer size of these things. This is Etowah Mounds Mississippian culture was in Georgia. More into making impressive structures. The Hopewell Mounds, most of them 5-10 feet tall. The Jaredites, most of them were, sometimes they'd get up to 50 or 60 feet tall, but very sparse. I mean, there's not a lot of Jaredite mounds that are that big. The vast majority of them are relatively small. But these, the Mississippians, they wanted to go large. And they did. Just like their pyramid structures down in Central America were large. Think of how many basket loads of earth this is Cahokia. Would be required to make these gigantic structures. The face of this gigantic structure. By the way, this is which time frame is this now? This is Mississippian. This is the Lamanite laborers laboring under Mesoamerican taskmasters. This is the Great Serpent in Ohio, one of the World Heritage Sites. You can see the serpent undulations going out on this prominence. And of course, what is the significance of the serpent? The children of Israel with Moses, they put a brazen serpent on a pole. Those who looked to the serpent would live. The serpent is a representation of Jesus Christ. Even with that tower, with about 100-foot tower, you still cannot see the whole serpent from that position. It takes a drone to get up there that high to do that. And of course, when we think about the gospel and we think about the restoration, we think of this sacred place where all of this took place. There's some really great friendships that are developed when you go and take these tours together. It's awesome. It's Elder Hartman Rector Jr. and his wife Connie. They both passed away now. There's Elder Rector again. As different than my Bob Fuller. This is the Luthis. They were mission presidents in Helsinki, Finland. These are friends from Texas and from BYU, and Alan Osmond and Suzanne, and both of these sweet ladies are just awesome. And Shauna Cox and others. But these tours are opportunities to meet some of the most incredible members of the church that you'll ever meet. These are people who are engaged in the gospel and love the church and love the Book of Mormon. It's pretty nice to be able to rub shoulders with some of these great stalwarts of the gospel from all over the world. You think of the sacred nature of what occurred here and how it's affected the trajectory of the world and all of our lives. Just amazing. That's what it kind of looks like there in the chronology tour in the fall. Ultimately, in the Book of Mormon, everything ends up right here on the Hill Cumorah. So church history and Book of Mormon history actually intersect with each other. Brothers and sisters, there is only one Hill Cumorah, and that's it. And from this hill, Mormon and Moroni watched the destruction of their people because why? Because they didn't pay attention to the warnings that they had been given by the Jaredites. Are we going to learn from the sacrifices that were made by the Book of Mormon prophets who left not only their warnings, but the warnings of the Jaredites as well, so that we might learn from them, so that we might be able to not make the same mistake and go down the same path of forgetting about the sacred covenant with God that this nation is under. This is a sacred land. This is a nation that's under a sacred covenant with God. This is a little bit long, so I'm going to go ahead and just stop this. But the Sacred Grove is such an amazing place where the power of God was infused into that landscape, and the whole world changed because of that early morning. Some of the ancient walls that crisscross the Sacred Grove. It's the Palmyra Temple. And Moroni with his trumpet showing the gospel going out to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people, beginning from this place. Okay, but hopefully that has got everybody enough information there to get a little bit excited about going with us on the tours this year. Okay, just let me get to a different screen here, and we'll go with this one right here, and we'll share that screen. Okay, now hopefully, if all goes well, you should be able to see now several people standing and another guy by the name of Bill Weaver at this place called Flint Ridge. This is the beginning part of this discovery tour that we that we're talking about here this evening. And this is actually a kind of a VIP group. This is the group that we took. They had a bunch of people from the church administrative different groups and so forth, as well as about 10 of us Heartland people and several other of the people from the Central America theories. And they're all there to learn more about this whole thing. But Flint Ridge is an interesting place in that this is in the central part of Ohio, kind of north central Ohio. And the reason why they call it Flint Ridge is because there's a big deposit of flint that stretches through this whole entire region. And when people first started coming out here, some of the first settlers came into the area, they found these gigantic pits. And they couldn't figure out what was going on with them. And they started finding actual tools in these pits. And these pits are interesting because they were hewn out of solid flint, which is basically a solid rock mineral material. And some of these pits were 60 feet across and 25 or 30 feet deep. And they started looking at these pits and were going, wow, this is taking an amazing amount of effort, even today, with explosives or heavy equipment, to be able to dig these pits out would take a lot. When they started really to check them out, it turned out that there were over 10,000 of these pits over about a 30 or 40 mile area. And so some of these pits look like, for example, if I can get this to switch here. Come on, let's go. They're gonna let me go. Let's see. There we go. Okay, finally there, did it. So this is an example of one of the pits. You can see a person walking to the left-hand side there, but this is looking down into these pits. Now that these trees have actually grown up over the centuries, there's 400 or 500-year-old trees that are in the bottom of these pits here. They have a museum here, and this is one of the best known mannequins. It was actually with the Ohio archaeological groups, basically. This is a mannequin that they made as accurate as possible to the ancient Hopewell mound builder people, who we believe to be the Nephites of the Book of Mormon. And you can see a couple of things about them. They were fairly good height. This person was represented to being about 6 feet tall. Has copper breastplate on and bear's teeth. Has some bracelets on, and it has instead of having leather on, this mannequin is wearing actually clothing, textiles, because we now know that these ancient people, the Hopewell Mound Builder people, and also the Nephites talked about having fine twined linen and other types of cloth material or clothing, and they were not just wearing raggedy old leathers, but they were actually wearing clothing that could be dyed. And this is actually showing one of the patterns that was actually found in textiles in Ohio. And so that's what they have put onto this person's tunic, basically, that this mannequin is wearing here. Of course, he had a spear with an arrowhead, a flint arrowhead on the top of it, or a spearhead on it. And this is what they kind of think that would be representative of what these people may have been doing, what they look like. There's lots of other things in the Book of Mormon. For example, they talked about in the Book of Mormon, they talk about wolves. In fact, they talked about wolves in sheep's clothing. Well, it wouldn't make much sense for them to talk about wolves in sheep's clothing if they didn't know what a wolf was or had no idea what a sheep was. So here we have wolf mandibles that actually have been found in some of these burials of the Hopewell Mound Builder people. And so they actually know that there were wolves there. We stopped. This is one of the next stops that we made was in the Johnson Humrick House Museum in Coshocton, Ohio. These are the Newark Holy Stones. The Book of Mormon talks about people who are illiterate that had a written language, and the language that they were using was primarily Hebrew. And then they would use another form called Reformed Egyptian in the actual making, or the language placed upon the gold plates themselves was this Reformed Egyptian. But they said, but their primary language was Hebrew. And here we have examples that from back in the 1860s of stones that were discovered in burial mounds in and around the Ohio area that have ancient Hebrew writing all over them, and a form of Hebrew that wasn't even known to exist at the time. In the Book of Mormon, they talked about having head plates and breastplates and ornaments of gold and silver, and they had copper, and all these different types of metals were being used. And this is actually an upside down head plate that is in Coshocton, Ohio, at the museum there. Most of these museums that we're going to go take a look at do have, in fact, head plates and breastplates, which is something that you just will not find if you go down to Central America, because they weren't doing anything with metals down there until around 1100 to 1200 AD. But up here in North America, these things are found right in the Book of Mormon timeframes. This is a breastplate here. It's a copper breastplate. They also show here, these are mammoth tusks or mammoth teeth, and ribs and bones and femurs and so forth. Of course, that is important because we know in the Jaredite time frame of the Book of Mormon, we had animals that they called the Curulams and Cumulons and elephants. And the elephants were very useful to the Jaredites. Now, there's no indication that the Nephites knew about these elephants, but the Jaredites certainly did. And it looks like the Jaredites may have been the ones that hunted the mastodons to near extinction prior to the coming of the Nephites. This is at Newark, Ohio, and when we stop here, we go to this is the Great Circle and the Great Octagon. This is Amberly Nelson, who is one of our experts in the Hebrew symbolism and symbology. And she is explaining to the group a little bit about the symbolism involving the Great Octagon and the Great Circle. And just for brevity's sake, I'll just kind of mention that this is a drawing that was done back in 1860 by the Licking County David Wyrick. He was the town surveyor. This is a map that he made back in 1860. It's one of several different maps that were made of these earthworks. But this is a gigantic temple complex 4 square miles in extent. It's the largest temple complex even on the face of the earth today. And encoded in this gigantic earthwork is nothing less than the entire plan of salvation, as only the restored gospel of Jesus Christ knows it. That no other religion shares commonality with us as far as the plan of salvation. It is very unique to Joseph Smith and the revelations given to him and to the God and through the gospel and through the Book of Mormon. And yet here is this 2,000-year-old ancient structure that's just massive, and much of it has been destroyed, but quite a bit of it is still there. And how would you like to go and be able to actually walk on some of these places where this gigantic temple complex was made? And we spend about 5 or 6 hours here just talking about some of the different aspects of this gigantic earthwork. This is actually just one small portion of it. It's called the Great Octagon portion. A few years ago, some gentlemen from Earlham College, when asked if there was any solar alignments to these gigantic earthworks, they thought it would be fun to just go out and just show that you could basically make any site to be a solar aligned site if you looked hard enough. And instead, they couldn't find any solar alignments. And so they said, well, it must be aligning to something else. And it turns out it was the moon. And of course, we know in the Book of Mormon, they talked about that Coriantumr, the last Jaredite, that he was with the Nephites for the space of 9 moons. The Nephites were telling time based on the moon because that is what Hebrews do. And it turns out that Native Americans do most of everything that they do based on the moon as well, because they are descendants from those Hebrews. And it turns out that that the moon was the focal point of this ancient civilization. And you can see there's 8 different alignments, that the rising and setting of the moon over its entire 18.5-year lunar cycle is actually embedded into this massive earthwork. This just gives you an idea of just the sheer size of one portion of it. This is the ditches, and then the earth banks on the left-hand side that surround this gigantic earthwork here. Again, you can see that this is the top of the structure, and you can look down into the ditches, and this is looking over towards the entrance point of this. And then this is another place where they put a bridge across there, so kind of give you an idea of the scale and size of the ditches that were dug here in this ancient earthwork in Newark, Ohio. This is a little bit of an aerial shot here. It's kind of hard to see it because it's still so huge, but you can see the berms of the earthworks. I'll see if I can point to them right here with my cursor. I hope you can see that. There's a portion of one segment of the 8-sided octagon. This is the second segment over here. So this is showing 2 segments. Then there's this area coming up here, and then it goes into a big round segment that goes all the way out, clear out and around here. So this is the circle part here, the little narrow neck area here, and then it goes into the octagon structure. And even today, it's so large you almost can't even see it by a drone. You have to get up almost to an airplane or satellite range to be able to see the entire structure. This is just one small portion of the entire structure, which is again 4 square miles in extent. This is in Columbus, Ohio. This is the Ohio Historical Connection Museum. And hopefully we can get in this museum. It's just got some phenomenal things. As you can see, it's a fully articulated mammoth skeleton here. Basically, every state in the Midwest, every natural history museum has elephants. So that is something that the Book of Mormon talks about, having elephants. And of course, we have the evidences for it right here. This is in that museum. There's these small little stone effigies. And this looks a little bit like if you take a look at a sheep or a lamb from the side, you can kind of see its ear there and its face profile. And of course, that's because they were sheep. So there's sometimes they call them sheep stones. These are textile fragments that are in some of the drawers there. These were actual still pieces of textile that have been preserved because uh, they were up against copper, and the salts in the copper basically preserved the textiles so that they didn't decompose. And so this is how we know that they actually had textiles, and what kind of textiles they had, what kind of materials they were making the textiles from, and also what they were doing as far as dyeing and coloration of these textiles. So here are some more textile fragments of different types and different kinds of materials that they have been able to find so far. It's pretty amazing that these have lasted for nearly 2,000 years. And but this is some of the actual textile fragments that we can show you when we go to these sites. Bracelets were talked about, and ear spools are not necessarily talked about in the Book of Mormon, but they do talk about having gold and silver and copper, and these particular ones here are silver. This is from the Hopewell Mound Group in Ross County, and these are copper and silver ear spools. They were kind of like they put these in the meaty part of their ear, basically. We know that they had instruments. In the Book of Mormon, they talked about having instruments. And this is a panpipe made out of copper. And it's found in the Hopewell Mound Group. And this is a three flute. It's a three-toned flute, basically, is what that is. They also had, they had the bracelets. In the Book of Mormon, they talked about head plates. And here we have, you can see right there on the left-hand side, you can see the image basically, and they even call it a head plate. Head dresses would be very similar, and there were several different kinds of those that they would make. Again, this is another shot. This is a copper or metal head plate, just like is described in the Book of Mormon. There are beads. These are pearls. The Book of Mormon also describes having fine pearls. And they had an abundance of them, and sure enough, we have an abundance of pearls and all kinds of beadwork. They were fairly highly adorned. They had time to make beautification of personal jewelry and ornaments and things like that, which is pretty amazing, actually, how they were able to drill holes in these pearls and things. This is a breastplate. Right here. This is a breastplate that has these beads on it. By the way, these beads are actually cultured pearls. We know that they were culturing these pearls and drilling these holes. And in 4th Nephi, it talks about these had breastplates made out of copper, and they had fine pearls. This is a dog. It's a pipe, but it's in the form of a dog. And of course, we have other dog effigy pipes and wolves. Wolves and dogs are both mentioned in the Book of Mormon. And here we have the physical. These are effigy pipes that they made, and these are all from the Hopewell Mound Builder culture. Again, who we think is the Nephites. Anybody want to take a guess what you think that looks like a little bit? It looks kind of like a horse to me. They don't know really what to call it, because it has a big bowl in the middle of its forehead there. So it doesn't look quite exactly like a horse, but it has some resemblances of a horse. And then we have the two different major cultures. We have the Jaredites and the Nephites. This is the earlier Jaredite time frame. And these people made some of these gigantic mounds. Now we're going to have a Q&A here in just a minute, and you can ask whatever questions. But I know a lot of people say, can we go up on some of the mounds? And the answer to that is yes. On some of them we can go up. Some of them we cannot go up. It's off limits. And then people say, well, do we have to go up? And the answer is no, you don't have to go up. But you'll be kicking yourself if you don't. So no, just kidding. we can accommodate lots of different folks and their different needs. So the answer is that if you would like to go up, you can. If you don't think you can make it, you can. There's a bench at the bottom, and you can hang out there, and we'll tell you a little bit about how you can still hear what's going on when we talk about what we're seeing up at the top. All right, so the Middle Woodland Hopewell. This is just from one of the signages inside a museum in Fort Ancient, Ohio, and it talks about 100 BC to about 500 AD. This is the heyday of the Nephites, if you will. This is about from when Zarahemla is established, and the Nephites start to really grow and develop and so forth through the time of Christ and the 200 years of peace, all the way to the final end of the Nephite civilization. And this is kind of their main area that they lived in during this time frame. So we're going to be talking about all those kind of things. They had bear's teeth, canine teeth, and again pearls. This is the Serpent Mound, which we'll go and see that again. This has some really amazing things about it that make it quite enigmatic. A lot of people have speculated as to what this represents and what it could be. I think that the best understanding of this is if you can relate it to what the ancient peoples believed as far as their deities and so forth, and specifically as it relates to Christ. So anyway, so Serpent Mound, we believe, is a representation of the Holy One, basically of Jesus Christ, and how he points the way back to our Savior. This is another mound that we can actually go on. It doesn't have a visitor center, but this is called Sight Mound. It's in the Paint River Valley, near Chillicothe, Ohio. And this is really kind of a fun place that we can go to, because sometimes we will actually grab lunch and we'll have sack lunch up on the mound while we're talking about the ancient civilization here. This is just again talking about the ancient textiles that can be seen. This is a goat horn. Why would this be important to show a copper goat horn? Well, it has to do with the fact that the ancient people of the Book of Mormon were actively practicing the laws of Moses, which required animal sacrifices, and specifically lots and lots of sheep or goats. And the ancient mound builder civilization obviously had availability of goats and sheep, and they even made small effigy horns out of copper, and kind of showing basically what would be considered to be a shofar today. This is a little copper shofar, if you will. These are vultures are mentioned in the Book of Mormon, and we have vultures here in this ancient civilization. There's more of the silver ear spools and copper ear spools. Again, it's just showing the use of metals and metallurgy, metalworking. This is showing an effigy of a parrot, and again made out of copper plates, which means that they knew how to take metals and make them into plates and carve things out of them, which would be important if you're going to make also gold plates. This is when we were at one of the meeting houses there in Ohio, and that's one of my good friends and some other people here. Some of you may recognize Kelly Ogden here, and there's Keith Merrill is there in the light blue shirt on the left hand side there, and Hal Jensen is in the black and white kind of stripedy shirt there. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of different people who were on the tour with us back at that point in time, and this is the Hopewell Culture National Historical Preservation location here, and this is the whole group that was from the church and so forth. So anyway, that's a little bit about the tour that was done. It was actually put together by Ken Krogh and his wife Crystal, And that was really our first dry run, if you will, of the Discovery Tour, and it turned out to be such a powerful tour that we decided to go ahead and make and offer it for the first time last year, but then that got canceled and moved to this year. So if any of you are considering going on this, it is a whirlwind 4 days of intensive information. We can't go to all the different sites, obviously, in a 4 day time frame, but we can show you some of the most profound evidences that have ever been found in support of the claims of the Book of Mormon in the heartland of America. And with that, we can go to a little bit of a Q&A session. Let me move this over here.
Hey, Rod, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Is there anything you see on the Discovery Tour that is not seen on any of the other tours?
What's that?
Is there any particular site that you see on the Discovery Tour that's not seen on the other tours?
A lot of the other tours do not go to the Flint Ridge area.
Okay.
Some of the, there are a couple of tours that do, but we just usually don't have enough time to see Flint Ridge. Since this is all concentrated into and around the Columbus, Ohio general region, we actually can go and see that, which is really, it's pretty profound when you see, I mean, because you only see maybe 15 or 20 of these gigantic pits, 60 feet across and 30 feet deep. But when you realize that there's over 10,000 of them, there was a lot of work being done in this general region. Anciently, there was literally tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people employed in the creation and making of the ancient stone tools and weaponry and things that they would need for hunting and for fighting and so forth. So there's that. Usually we try to go to the Serpent Mound, and there's a few other places, but yeah, that's probably one of the places that we don't go to very often, but we do go to on the Discovery Tour. All right, so let me see if you want to unmute yourself, and then we can ask a question, and then or let's see, there should be. Let me see. Where can we see the chat?
Yeah, right. If anyone wants to submit a question under chat, you can do it that way. Type your question or just unmute.
So, Rod, what's the purpose of the mounds? Have we done some excavation to see why they even built the mounds?
Yeah, there's actually 5 different types of mounds. They range from defensive structures to effigy mounds, meaning in the shapes and forms of animals or symbols of some sort. There are burial mounds, and then there's demarcation mounds, basically, or what we call astronomical alignment mounds. And sometimes they have burials in them. Generally speaking, they don't. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's a lot more burial mounds than there are other kinds of mounds. But in the Book of Mormon, they talked about heaping up heaps of earth. They talked about they were covered with a shallow covering of earth. After some of the wars and so forth, they would do that. Some of the biggest mounds actually were built after the Book of Mormon time frames, because this will be all explained as well, because there is now overwhelming evidence that the Mayan civilization down in Central America actually collapsed around 900 AD, and that they came north. They found the Lamanites up here who are still obviously hanging out up here, and they enslaved these Lamanites for about 300 years and made them build some of these gigantic mounds like we see at Cahokia, Okmulgee mounds and Etowah mounds and so forth. That we're talking about mounds that are 100 feet tall, and in the case of Cahokia, over 15 million basket loads of earth were required to build that one singular mound in that complex that has over 30 mounds in it. So that's that gives you a little bit more of a reason why the mounds are important. It's that they were so huge that they're one of the few remaining things of a civilization that was so big, but they didn't build out of steel and things like that would last for a long time. They did build some buildings out of concrete. They actually call it Hopewell cement, but cement does not last long in these in this freezing thawing cycles that happen every day in the winter in the Midwest. So concrete does not last long out there. so what we have as far as the tangible evidence of a gigantic, massive civilization is really mostly in the form of these gigantic earthworks, and many of them have been excavated. A lot of them have been taken down. They estimated that, in fact, there's a book. It's called the Illustrated Encyclopedia of Native American Mounds and Earthworks. In that, the authors, it's the most comprehensive compendium of ancient earthworks of America. And the authors on page 3 of that book, they come right out and say that the biggest question they get is how many mounds were there anciently here in America? They said, based on the surveys and on the additional maps and other information that we've been able to glean, the first surveys that were done estimated somewhere about 240,000 mounds in the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys. He says, but that number is far, far too low. He says, based on what we now know, there were over 1 million mounds. And that's not just mounds, that's mound sites. And many of those sites have 8 to 10 mounds on them. So we're talking about, as many potentially as, 10 million mounds in the heartland of America, built by one of the greatest unknown cultures that the world has ever not known. But we know them through their ancient history of the Book of Mormon. So that's the reason why the mounds are such an important thing. I will have to say that after you've been through 2 weeks of seeing mound after mound after mounds after mounds, that pretty soon a mound is a mound, and everybody kind of knows what that is. But it's cool to be able to see what kind of artifacts came out of which mounds in which areas, and be able to go up on them, and it's kind of like, when you go to Israel or you go to the sacred sites here in Utah or back east or whatever, there's something about actually being there and feeling what was going on back in that time frame and what was maybe going on in the minds of the people, and being able to connect with them in that way is just so profound. Okay, that's kind of a long explanation, but
thank you.
So Rod, I wanted some of the listeners to know that joined us late. They might not have heard some of the discussion on the front end, but the church has decided they're going to go ahead and cancel the pageant in Palmyra, and then the Nauvoo pageants will be postponed until 2022. And so Jill has put together an email that will go out tomorrow that will list options. We're still set up, our tours are set up and put in place, and there's even at the church history sites, if they don't actually have doors open, there's lots to see and do in these areas. Like in Nauvoo, there's lots of different things. We're going to follow up and see if the Community of Christ sites will be open, but Kirtland has areas to walk and hear the history. We'll go over the history that accompanies each of these sites, but you'll want to make a decision about what you'll want to do with your tour coming up. So do you have any questions about logistics or
that's one thing I was going to bring up that always comes up, and that is that people say, well, when you're, so how is it being on a bus, on a tour coach, and then everybody wants to know, How do we hear? I mean, if there's 50 people on a tour, and we're all in a in a museum, and some of these museums are relatively small and so forth, or we're walking out on these sites someplace, how do we know? How can we hear what's going on? And so let me just address that a couple times. So first off, the as far as being on a bus tour, most people find it to be really quite relaxing. I mean, you don't have to worry about, did you make the wrong turn? What is traffic going to be bad or whatever? You just don't have to even worry about any of that. You can just focus on the learning. And we use that time in the tour coaches. They have overhead screens so we can play videos. We have discussions. In fact, I would say that, wouldn't you say, Chris and Mark and Jill, that probably 70% of the information that you're going to get on the tour actually happens inside the tour coach?
Yeah, I would agree.
And so, even if some of the museums are not open, we've been to all these museums numerous times. A lot of times, one of the reasons why we go there is because they have these really awesome videos, but we have all the videos. So if push comes to shove and we can't go into the museum to watch the video that they're going to present in the museum about their place, we can show you on the tour coach as we're rolling up to the location, and then we can get out and actually go and see things. So that's nice. The other thing is that Mark and Jill a couple of years ago found a really good way of communications. And so there was a couple of places in the video that we played at the very beginning where you can see me, I'm walking around and it has like a little microphone sitting around my neck and just holding up in front of my mouth there. And then each one of you have your own personal headsets. And then as we go into places, I don't have to yell or whatever to get people's attention or whatever. We can just we can have a conversation. It's everybody can hear it. We can be out on the grounds. You can kind of wander off a little bit. You can get quite a ways away actually, and they still will pick up, and you can still hear what is being discussed. And so you don't miss out on anything. Having that capability is just so nice when we go on the tour, so so nobody has to miss out on any aspect of it.
Rod,
Yeah.
it's Charles Richards.
Charles, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
You're looking good.
I have been on 2 tours with Rod and been on the bus, and there is so much information that's given on the bus. It is unbelievable. You could go on it several times and you still wouldn't be able to get all of the information that's given. And the sites, the things are just fantastic. I wish we were going with you, but things are not able to this year. But I just want everybody to know that's watching this. If you can go. It's worth it.
Well, and I got to be honest with you. I'm just wondering about, as things continue to digress with our nation and with people and everything else, that I think that the opportunities to go and actually see these sacred sites are going to become more and more rare and more difficult to get on them. I just the personal feeling about things. I just see a lot of things going on that are going to make things more difficult to travel and so forth. Be it whether it's COVID or other things coming down the pike, or economic things. I mean, we can't continue to do the things that we're doing in our nation and expect that everything's going to be fine in the long haul. There's just too many strange things going on. So if you can make it this year, I mean, this is going to be a great year to do it. But I don't know if there's going to be a really great year anytime soon. Where everything is going to be all open like it was. I think we're hoping that we'll get back to like it was, but I kind of really question whether or not it will ever get back to what it used to be.
Jill, can you go over, and maybe it'll be in an email, but if there were any certain deadlines on any of the tours, because right now a couple of the tours are sold out, right?
Correct. Both the summer pageant tours were nearly full.
Okay.
We do have some spots, and of course, now with this announcement, I'm sure there'll be a little more shuffling around. But guests will have the opportunity to choose to go in the fall if they don't want to worry about the heat now that the pageant's not an issue.
Chronological is in the fall, which is the 2-week, and then the 5-day or the 4-day discovery
in September.
September.
Yeah.
And both of those fall tours really have a much more likelihood of not having restrictions and other things in place, at least if we continue to progress. So
I'm
we're very
thinking
hopeful
that,
for those.
Hey, Jill, one thing I was just gonna mention that is that the Discovery Tour probably has a higher probability maybe of being able to do everything in that tour, just because everything is in one state. So as long as we know that the state of Ohio is going to be opened up enough that we can go in and see these sites, that'll work. But the Chronology Tour, we go through, 16 states, and each one of those states has their own COVID, protocols and things that they're doing, and so we can't really tell what each state is going to be doing. So we're kind of hoping that we can still get in to see most of those things in the 16 states.
Yeah, we will definitely have to check on that, find out as we go along which states are allowing which different things. And that might be more of a question in June, July, but by October, hopefully there's even more opened up. But I don't know, I've done a lot of hoping. So I'm grateful that as much of the tour is outside, we know that we'll be able to see those places, and you'll be able to provide any information that any on-site tour guide could offer. So I know it will be an incredible trip, even if they don't open anything more up.
And by the way, if you want to see backgrounds like Jill and Mark have, that's that very first day of the Chronology Tour. That's what it looks like.
Bring your
right down there in Florida.
Pina coladas.
That's right. And Florida is one of those places that is open. So, hey, you know what? So that's something we can do. So we go down to St. Mark's Lighthouse and started off right there, looking at the alligators there in the swamps there in Florida. It's pretty awesome. All right. Anybody, any other questions anybody has that would like to discuss?
Rod, was there any update on Zarahemla? Did anything come from the LIDAR that was being done for where we thought Zarahemla might be across from Nauvoo? Is that included in anything now and all that?
In the Chronology Tour, that is definitely included. It's not in part of the Discovery Tour because that's all in Ohio. The answer to your question is yes, and the other thing is that I can't take the thunder from Wayne because he's going to be in next month in the expo. He's going to be telling all about that and what's been going on. It's really just absolutely amazing.
So Rod, give them the info about the expo.
What's that?
Tell them about the dates of the expo.
Yeah, so the expo will begin on April the 9th. Right now we have, I think, 55 presentations and so forth that we're going to be doing. We have some really awesome people involved in this. Wayne's got 2 or 3 different presentations, and as far as the LIDAR studies, actually, we had LIDAR already pretty much done, but this was magnetometry surveys that were done using the German census equipment and technologies, and they have been able to discover about 150 different ancient fire pits, basically, They have now sent about 100 and something of those samples into a C14 lab in Lithuania, I think it is now. Anyway, that has done some of the analysis of that. Most of the fire pits that they have been able to discover up in the surface area around Zarahemla there actually date more into about the 11 to 1200 AD range, but they have had at least a couple of them that have dated back as far back as 300 AD. So that is actually really good news. So there's going to be more of that's coming. Wayne just informed us a couple of days ago that he actually has been able to get some additional funding, and that will cover about 300 more sites that they're going to be able to get the dating and so forth put together on that. So like I said, I'm not gonna take his thunder. He's got some great stuff to share with you. Make sure you become part of the streaming conference coming up, the virtual conference. It's going to be awesome.
How will we get more information on that expo?
The expo basically, hopefully you should be getting some emails now. We've had a couple of emails that we put out about it. You can just go to the main website, just bookofmormonevidence.org. And there's the information there, just bookofmormonevidence.org. And there's all kinds of information there. Just click on, there's several different links and stuff there. You need to be a subscriber. And so there's the way you can, if you're not already a subscriber, then you can just do that. And I think it's like $45, and it gives you three months of access to the expo. If you are already a subscriber, then I think it's $30 for the access to just the expo itself. So if you're already a subscriber to the Book of Mormon Evidence streaming website, and then that's where you can go for that. Okay, good question. Any other ones?
I had one more. You were talking about the audio that you have. Do you have audio that goes into elderly hearing aids? Will it pick it up?
It actually has a pretty good volume. Actually, what you do is it's a little set. It's a little receiver, and you plug in your own personal headphones into it. So that way you have your own ear pieces.
They're just like hearing aids.
Yeah. So
like hearing aids.
Yeah.
Can be. Yeah. Hopefully.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, so you bring your own headphones. They can either be the kind that go over your ears or the earbuds that go into your ears, but they are wired. They're not wireless. That would be really nice if they were digital like that, but
yeah. Although if you have noise canceling headphones, they're more expensive or whatever, but if you plug those in, then you'll be able to hear pretty darn clearly. If you have corded noise canceling, that makes sense. All right.
All right. Well, we are about to an hour, so.
I have a question for Jill. You're going to send out an email so we can decide if we're going to do that 2-week tour. That was supposed to have the Palmyra pageant, but it's not going to now. So you'll get a sense of how many people want to go on that and decide if you're going to do it or not.
Yeah, we'll send that out and hopefully get feedback in a couple of weeks and be able to announce that by the 1st of April. What the actual plan is going to be.
I see
a lot of people have not.
The dates will still be the same. The dates?
Yes, they should. Yeah, they'll be the same. The only option would be if possibly there's just a small amount that want to do the first tour and small amount to do the second tour, then it might be a matter of combining those dates and just doing one summer tour. But we'll find out when we see the interest.
In answer to the question on hearing aids and hearing, on both tours I had hearing aids, and on the last one we had the earphones, and they worked great. didn't have any problems at all.
Thank you, Charles. That's awesome. That's helpful.
Buongiorno, Rod. This is Tammy Roosh from our Italy tour.
Hey, buongiorno, hey.
Hey, oh, I
Allora,
was looking forward to this trip.
come stai?
Yeah, well, that's about as far as my Italian goes. That and ciao.
Well, you just about heard the
anyways,
extent of mine now, too.
well, I actually did pretty good on our tour, but
Yeah.
I'm just looking forward to going on this Book of Mormon tour with you. I was really bummed about last year, but I just want to say I agree with you. I think that this tour, everyone needs to plan on going because of what the future's looking like under this administration, especially, but who knows what's going to go on. So I think that those people, or get your friends or family to go on this tour. Things might be different a year from now in America. So
Well, I agree with you, Tammy, and this is the other reason why I think you'll notice that last year when they canceled the pageant because of the COVID situation, they put it off until this coming year. But this time when they canceled it, they didn't put it off until next year or the year after that.
right.
They basically canceled it permanently.
Oh, okay.
So that's, although there are going to still be a couple of the other, the Nauvoo pageants. Apparently, they're still planning on doing something with those. I'm not sure exactly what the difference is between. Well, I know one of the differences between the Hill Cumorah pageant and the Nauvoo pageants is that a lot of it has to do with the state of New York versus the state of Illinois.
Right.
And state of New York is a lot more restrictive and other issues, and there's a lot more tax issues and things like that the church has to deal with in New York. So there's some of that aspect of it.
Well, hopefully they'll be getting a new governor out there soon in New York, and we can only pray for it.
These are not looking too good, apparently, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that's okay.
So,
Hey, who else is going on? Who's going on with the tour with you? Is Tanya going to go, or are you going to have someone else with you? Doing the tour. I was late to the video, so I didn't.
Depends on the tour. The Discovery Tour, I think, because it's a fairly new one, we're going to be. I think Mark and Jill, isn't one of your kids going to jump on that one, or
We can't hear you.
Yeah,
We're still working on it. We don't know who.
Well, like I'm
possibly.
going on the 2-week tour in October.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
is anybody going? I mean, who else is going on that with you to narrate or whatever, be the tour guide, or is it just you?
Okay, well, it's I'm not sure. Chris, Jill, what?
She's asking about another guide besides you, like
Right.
Yeah. October.
Have you decided that in October?
No, I know Chris would be on the June, and she's on in Egypt this time in October. So we don't have another guide lined up. We'll have to see if that lends itself.
No, that's okay. I'm glad to have Rod be the only, guide.
Got Rod to yourself now.
Yeah, he'll take care of
That's
you.
right.
Actually, it is a little bit more work, but actually it works out pretty well. And we've got these tours. I mean, the way that Mark and Jill have put these things together, it really takes a lot of the pressure off of me, and I can focus on the educational aspects of it. And so it really is pretty well, we've got most of the kinks and the other issues worked out of it over the course of the last several years. So it really goes pretty smooth.
Good. I'm excited about it, really. So
Yeah,
can't
Tammy,
wait to
that's
see.
gonna be awesome.
Yeah. It's gonna be fun. And thanks you guys for putting on these videos for us through the last couple of months so that we can see what each tour you have to offer and what's going on. I really appreciate it.
You bet.
Well,
You
thank
bet.
you.
Fantastic. Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts, questions, comments? If not, then we will.
All right. We will sign off then.
Thanks,
All right.
everybody. Listen, what's that?
I said ciao to everybody.
Ci vediamo, eh? But
Yeah.
listen, I look forward to being with you guys. I hope we can all decide, hopefully fairly soon, whether or not we're going to be doing these tours. We have a big year ahead of us, so I'm looking forward to getting to know those of you who I don't already know. I know quite a few people in the list there, but I don't think I know everybody. So thank you for joining us, and we'll look forward to an awesome tour season together.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good night. We will,
Good night.
this has been just for, if you want to be able to share this, we have recorded it. We will post this on Facebook and YouTube and send it out, the links via email tomorrow. So you can share that with anyone that wasn't able to make it tonight.
Great. Thanks, Jill.
Okay, Mark, Jill, I want to be wherever you are right now.
Yeah.
We're actually in our living room.
Yeah, quite a few.
Right.
Good night, everybody.
Good job, Rod.
Okay. Good night.
All right.
Hey.